6th and Peabody, our location, with Yeehaw Beer and Old Smoky Moonshine. Coming up, Mike Pereira will join us. That's in about 30 minutes. We'll discuss the NFL officials from the conference championship weekend, also year 2 of the USFL and more. Looking forward. Always enjoy when Mike is on. And speaking of Mike's, Mike Hoss, play-by-play voice of the New Orleans Saints, with us in 12 minutes. But before then, it's time for Primary Complaint.
It's time to air our top grievance of the week.
You can complain all you want.
My job is so unfulfilling. Don't run away from your feelings.
It's time for Primary Complaint on OutKick 360.
My primary complaint this week for the NFL conspiracy theorists. First, it was most recently Damar Hamlin and the body double theory. Not true. In fact, he was on The Masked Singer recently, apparently, I see. Good for him. Most recently, though, from the past weekend, the NFL is rigged crowd. Yes, the NFL is so rigged that in Week 18, with a chance to put the Green Bay Packers into the playoffs, the NFL chose the Seattle Seahawks. Just think about it. Use your common sense. It's my primary complaint.
So my primary complaint this week is trying to fight 2 viruses at once. I'm convinced that's exactly what my body is doing right now, and especially yesterday when I had to leave an hour before the show ended. Both of my daughters, and look, I get it. Having kids, you're going to get sick. They're going to bring stuff home from school. I understand what I signed up for. 2 daughters, both had a stomach virus. I've also been battling a cold separate of them. So when stuff started to happen yesterday, I started thinking there's 2 things going on at once here. A cold, some sort of upper respiratory infection, and a stomach bug. So when I go to Google to find out how often it happens that you just have 2 viruses at once, all I can find is information on COVID-19. That's it. That's all that Google will tell you about. There's apparently no other viruses, no other bugs that affect you anymore other than COVID-19. So my primary complaint is really all centered towards one thing. One, the fact that I had 2 viruses at once, but really it's the fact that those 2 viruses could not be researched online because the internet has shifted into an information gathering system on COVID-19 that's funded by Big Pharma. And that's all I can find out about. I have no idea. Could be dying with this virus I have right now. Wouldn't know because it's not COVID-19. And that is my primary complaint.
Well, Chad, at least you're able to look up your virus in the show I'm about to talk about. The world's pretty much ended, so they don't have that opportunity. But my primary complaint revolves around the show called The Last of Us. And in episode 3, they start this out, and there is a picture for those listening that you are... I get frustrated talking about this because my intelligence is being insulted, but it reads 10 miles west of Boston. And if you're looking at this, and I'm not a geologist or cartographer or whatever you want to call it, but I know 10 miles west of Boston is going to look slightly different than a small canyon in a coniferous forest located in the Rocky Mountains. So with that being the case, I'm a little frustrated that this is how they decided to set up an episode and make it seem as though, yeah, this could be reasonable. I'm not going to see anything off by thinking, yes, this is exactly 10 miles west of Boston. So that is my primary complaint.
Davey, I love this complaint. It does look like British Columbia.
That does bug me too.
Is where they're shooting out 10 miles outside of Boston. I think that people, creatives who make television shows and movies, are some of the worst people in the world at understanding geography, and they insult our intelligence time and again with their lack of understanding of geography. This happens all the time.
And this, I was talking with Ryan Albanese. He says this was filmed in Alberta, Canada. So just a couple thousand miles off. Yeah, great shot. It just kind of reminded me, though, if you remember those like viral tweets where it would be like a picturesque film of like the Swiss Alps, and then the caption would just read Orlando, Florida.
Yeah. It's the worst.
But
also, another thing about this show, I'm watching the show also.
Yes.
A lot of people are on HBO, but 10 miles west of Boston, the entire episode takes place in this quaint little home that looks like it would be in some picturesque little New England hamlet.
Yeah, it's the studio for This Old House.
Yeah, it's like downtown Foxborough when we were there, right?
Yeah.
Like it's that, but it's also so it pans out at one point and you see downtown Boston and just none of it makes sense. Like the trek, so they want us to believe that the trek from downtown Boston on the show that they're walking in. They went through Alberta, which we saw in that photo that Davey showed us, and then into this picturesque little New England town that feels like it's 50 miles outside of Boston in New Hampshire or Vermont or somewhere. And then they pan out, and it's like, you're in Southie is basically where it's showing you where you are from downtown Boston. None of it makes any sense.
Chad, the last time that anyone possibly had, I think, 2 viruses at once was college. That's why you couldn't find it.
So the 2 virus at once thing, I had the weirdest sensation in that I feel like I didn't get the full brunt of either virus, but both mixed together. It made me feel miserable. I had chills. I had fever. Hutton, by the time I got to my car, it's like 28 degrees in Nashville right now. By the time I walked to my car, I was shivering uncontrollably, like when I was patient 0 of COVID-19.
And I said this yesterday.
India a few years ago.
When you left yesterday, I said, not only was he patient 0, he's now patient 10 million.
Yeah.
And COVID-19 is officially
it's full circle.
It is disbanded now because it's all gone through Chad twice.
I think coronavirus is over now. Now that it's made its way full circle from early 2020 to now 2023, where I had the 2 viruses at once. But it was weird. Like I felt nausea from the stomach bug, and I felt like I had a bad chest cold, and it mixed with a fever. And then it was like sweating, fever, then followed by chills. But I didn't really get the worst of either virus. It was just both mixed together. I'm convinced that my body's fighting 2 viruses at once.
When the 2 viruses fighting each other killed you. Killed each other off.
Maybe. We'll find out tomorrow. If I'm 100% tomorrow, then I think that my body successfully fought off both.
And then the next school virus, legit, will run its course through Withrow as well.
These school
in
viruses.
about 2 weeks.
Fingers crossed. Have not thrown up. So that's the worst part of it. Have not done that.
Mike Haas, play-by-play voice of the Saints, discusses Sean Payton and more next on OutKick 360.
College football's in trouble. There's a lot of people trying to keep it from happening.
I think it's a general consensus across the college football landscape. We want to play football.
College football is a huge part of the fall. It's a huge part of Americana itself.
It just really felt like people in the country needed college football to just feel a little sense of normal.
Big news from the Big Ten as the conference releasing its 10-game football schedule.
We go home thinking there's going to be practice the next day. Everybody gets a text, stay home, everything's canceled.
Big Ten fall football season has been canceled.
We just believe collectively there's too much uncertainty.
I guess what I'm trying to understand, though, Kevin, is that was the same position you had 6 days ago.
The Big Ten is an unmitigated disaster.
There was a ton of confusion. There was presidents saying one thing, there was coaches saying another.
Players had to be silent, coaches had to be silent, ADs had to be silent.
People said, how does what you just did make any sense?
And nobody really knew what the heck happened when they voted to cancel the season.
You make this huge historical announcement, and then Kevin Warren never does a press conference to explain it. It was like a masterclass in how not to handle a crisis.
The word really that was lacking in all of this is transparency.
It felt like a lot of stuff was happening behind closed doors.
Even today, we still don't know what occurred.
So you don't tell us parents, that's fine, but you're not telling the young men that it affects.
We have to make a decision to save the season. What about the history books? What about the rivalry games? What about Paul Bunyan's axe? How is that not going to go to a team this year?
This is a failure of epic magnitude. The Big Ten presidents and leaders should be held accountable for the disastrous decisions that they're making.
Then the commissioner doubles down, saying his decision will not be revisited.
And that's the point. It felt like a war was declared on the Big Ten and Kevin Warren.
Everything turned political.
Because if this is medical, then you would have stopped the game of football a long time ago.
I think the Big Ten leaders will tell you that they probably made a mistake in hindsight.
If I had the chance to do it all over last year, I would make the same decisions that we made.
Plenty to discuss today as we begin hour number 2. Glad you're with us across the OutKick Network. Hutton and Withrow with you. Tom Brady announces his retirement. We've been discussing that over the first hour. We'll get back to it. We also have plenty to discuss in the head coaching searches where 2 openings remain. Craziness across free agency that will begin with quarterbacks. Jimmy G is not returning to San Francisco. They've made that perfectly clear through general manager and head coach comments today. And Clay Travis joins us in hour number 3 with perspective on all the big headlines today and earlier this week. And the perspective of Sean Payton getting traded, the contract getting traded from New Orleans to the Denver Broncos. A lot of the focus, and rightfully so, is on Payton and Russell Wilson. But what about from the New Orleans perspective? Play-by-play voice of the Saints is Mike Hoss. He joins us as we kick off hour number 2 on OutKick 360. Mike, thank you for the time, man.
No, anytime. It's been a crazy couple of days. Neither of which we kind of expected. We thought Sean was going to get a job. Then we didn't think he was going to get a job. And then, boom, he goes. And then Tom Brady this morning. So busy couple of days. Those two seem to be linked together.
Yeah, yes, just a bit, yeah, right? And I think everyone would have taken the odds on they're linked together in the league somewhere instead of one retiring, one going to work in Denver instead of Dallas or Miami. Point being, how much of this topic has dominated New Orleans sports talk, either on WWL there or just in the fan discussion that you have? I'm curious how much of it is surrounding Sean Payton.
It started after a very poor start. So after a poor start, and the Saints got off to a rough start, 3-7, 4-7, 4-8, and then you're going, wow, we can't finish 4-13. That benefits us none. So it became an issue during the season because they got off to such a rough start and didn't really, until they got that 3-game winning streak, kind of made their record better. But it was always kind of out there that, good gosh, this could be a catastrophe. You lose Drew, then you lose Sean, and then you have your worst record probably since Sean, and you get nothing for it because you traded up to get Chris Olave. So it's been a huge topic of discussion. And then when the season ended, I've never seen a city more involved in a coach, a beloved coach, getting a job somewhere else as quickly as possible for as much as possible as Sean Payton.
Did New Orleans get in return what you believe they were originally asking for?
Probably not, but I think the market, it probably ended up being fair. I don't think as fans and in this position that we're thrilled about giving away the 3rd round pick. Might seem like, kind of small potatoes in this, but the key was getting the 1st. The Saints had a pretty good draft coming up in 23. So now they have 29, which was 30, ironically, because of Miami and Tom Brady and Sean Payton. So it's the 29th and the 40th. So they have 2 out of the top 40. They have rest of the way through. They're looking pretty strong. They'll probably get a compensatory pick. So now 23 looked initially like, wow, this is going to be really tough. Now it becomes a pretty strong draft year, and they need it.
What were these last 2 years like, these years of transition, without Drew Brees and then without Sean Payton, and then everything just felt so normal in New Orleans for so long with Payton and Brees, and now going through this transition? Where do you feel like the franchise is now, and what was it like calling games for this organization given that transition?
We have to remember I'm relatively new at this. So 2021 was my first year. So end of the Drew Brees era, goodbye. Second year, into the Sean Payton era, goodbye. So I'm kind of done. I'm over with these new eras. And it's enough. This is year 3. And now it's the Dennis Allen era. I think the tricky part with this football team is, one, in this fan base, they get very spoiled with winning. I mean, enormously spoiled. 13-3 meant nothing around here. This is, a team that prior to Sean Payton didn't win a playoff game until they beat the Rams in 2001, when the actual game was. So 17 playoff appearances every year was in the playoffs, and you expected to win the Super Bowl when it really should have, probably in the 18 season or the 19 season or the 20 season. And so they became very used to winning. And so this was all new. We were just like the rest of the teams, right? In 2021, Drew's first year out, we started 4 different quarterbacks. The only team in the NFL to start 4 was the Saints. We also started 4 different kickers, if that means anything, in 2021. So we instantly became, whoa, we're like everybody else, and this sucks. And it's been tough. You lose, Jameis Winston early in this year, in the past 2022 in game 3. And then you go to Andy Dalton, and we don't see Jameis again. But the interesting thing to me was towards the end of the season, when they didn't play Jameis, who was healthy, was kind of like, are we going to do this again next year? Right? Is this what we're looking at with Andy and Jameis? Because at that time, there wasn't that first round pick. And even if you have one, it's going to be so late. It's not a very strong quarterback group. So it has been very, very tough to be the first no Drew, no Sean after 15 years of just, 7 NFC South titles, playoffs. It had become commonplace.
Mike Haas is the play-by-play voice of the New Orleans Saints, joining us on OutKick 360. So you mentioned the quarterback situation. You've got Andy Dalton, whose contract expires. He had a 1-year deal. Jameis signed a 2-year deal, so there's still a year left. But the transition now with the first-round pick, there will be some quarterback movement as well. Your thoughts on the direction they can take, and do you buy the Jimmy G connection in New Orleans that people are trying to make based on what Pete Carmichael might do with his offense?
I think, we enjoyed buying the Lamar Jackson story earlier at the end of the season a little better. I don't think Jameis will be around. Even though he's got a year left on his contract, it just didn't feel like that was the right fit. Even though Andy had played efficiently, which was exactly what Dennis called it, efficient. And, I think the bar had been a little higher than just plain efficient prior to that. I think they're going to have to go out and find somebody other than Andy. You've still got Taysom, but he's not your starter, but he's going to play some at quarterback. It just feels like the Jameis Winston situation didn't play out well at the end of this year, and it would feel weird to go right back into this competition next training camp with Jameis and Andy. So I do believe there'll be another veteran player, whether it's Jimmy G, who knows, Derek Carr, any of these guys that are out there. There's a lot of them out there. I've looked at the list, and it's a lot like Derek Carr, Jimmy G, Andy Dalton, Jameis Winston. And I looked also at the list for teams that wanted quarterbacks in the draft, and like the first 12 of needs quarterback. So it's not a good match.
Do you like one over the other in terms of veteran quarterbacks that are out there, especially with the possibility of Aaron Rodgers getting traded?
That's just, I tell you, the Aaron situation, because to me, the Saints were in a weird situation, even with Drew's in 2021, which, by the way, if Drew had said goodbye in 2021, Tom Brady would have been here, not Tampa. But this team has been so solid, and they've become so good defensively, it has not felt like they were in a blow-up mode. In fact, they weren't in a blow-up mode. And just because Sean left, there weren't a ton of changes on the coaching staff. It wasn't like, well, we weren't in a blow-up mode prior to you leaving. They weren't then. And, every team gets hit by injuries, but this team was just ravaged by injuries, ravaged by turnovers. So I don't know if there's one guy out there that is on the top of any list. Aaron Rodgers, to me, because I do think this is a good football team still. This defense proved it towards the end of the season. That's kind of what they're in. They're not in a complete blow up, but maybe in the next 2 years they better do something. So I kind of, if financially, of course, is also the trouble. They're $70 million over the cap, which is actually better than they've been the last 2 years. So, I feel like the quarterback room will look somewhat different. I can see Taysom and Andy staying around. But Andy is the backup. But I do feel like they're going to have to do something. And they're going to have to draft somebody somewhere along the way.
So the storyline with Sean Payton and what he was needing from Denver, and the report that there was some disagreement on the power play that either he needed assurance of from the ownership there or whatever it had to do with his role in Denver. Knowing the behind the scenes like you do there in New Orleans, what is Payton like behind the scenes and what he requires? His relationship with Mickey Loomis, very good, to the point where he met with him a couple weeks ago to discuss what it would take to get the contract traded to another team. That's when we really knew that Payton wanted to coach again, and immediately. What's Denver getting? What do you believe that the real point of contention was where he ultimately accepts the deal?
Well, he wants, like all NFL coaches, he wants control as much as he can humanly get. He is a control, I hate to use the word freak because it's not really fair, but he is a control person. He wants control of everything. He dips his fingers into a lot of the parts of the organization, and he does it a little bit by fear. And so I know that it's going to be, I think, for Denver's purposes, and one of my good friends who was in my wedding is a sports anchor in Denver, and I texted him last night. I go, dude, you're in for a ride, baby. It's going to be interesting. Sean's great. You get along well with him. He didn't give you a ton, but I do believe when you look at this ownership group, and that's exactly what he got when he got to New Orleans in 2006. And Tom Benson was there then, and he was not used to having an open pocketbook, but they gave Sean whatever he needed to do. They became, instead of the Marriott Courtyard, they became a 5 seasons, a 4 seasons, right? And he built a winning culture here that had not been here before. You can win. And the Saints had won off and on during Jim Moore, but he built a winning culture here to the point where people expected it. And he did that with control, and he did that with kind of changing, having the ownership have his back at all times. And it started in 2006, and it continues today.
We haven't discussed over the last, season, Chad, you and I, Dennis Allen, all that much.
Yeah.
You know, it's been about the former coach, not the current coach.
Kind of out of sight, out of mind in a weird way.
What has he been like behind the scenes, Mike? And in terms of head coach Dennis Allen paired with coordinator Pete Carmichael, in terms of the immediate future, they've got to put together a plan that allows them to win at a level that they can win this division based on what we saw this year in the division itself. Can they do that this offseason?
I think so. It's not like they have not been together. Dennis Allen's been around this organization, in 2 separate occasions. I think what'll end up, and they just lost Ryan Nielsen to Atlanta. I think what'll end up happening is Dennis he'll be the head coach. He won't call the defensive plays, and Pete will have. I felt like Pete pretty much had full reign last year from an offensive standpoint. They've got a lot of young talent. I don't think we're going to see Mike Thomas around this facility beyond March 17th. So Dennis is Dennis. He is a super nice guy. You're right. Let's put it this way. In training camp, I would have to look for him out on the field. You didn't hear him. You didn't see him. You didn't know where he was. You'd have to physically look for him out on the field. Now, that's not a knock on him. He gets knocked on because he's not fiery. He doesn't run up and down the sidelines and screaming. I think he's a good coach, but I think last year, given a kind of a 3-headed defensive coordinator role with him calling the plays, and I feel like maybe, and he talked about it during the season, that he might take a step back and look at maybe not calling the plays, but didn't. But I think that might happen this year. And we'll learn more. Dennis is who he is. He is not going to change. He's soft-spoken. He's nice. He's humble. Now in the locker room, he gets fiery, but for the most part, on the sidelines, he's different. If it weren't for the pen and the visor, I don't think you'd have a hard time finding it.
Mike Hoss is the play-by-play voice in the booth with Deuce McAllister for the New Orleans Saints radio broadcast team. Mike, tell Mike Detillier we said hello, if you don't mind. Down there in the area.
He's the best.
Yes, he is. And we really appreciate the visit here with the perspective from the New Orleans stance compared to what we're hearing out of Denver.
Yeah, well, they got some changes coming in Denver. It's a good thing, but there's a new sheriff in town, and he's going to run his show. And quite frankly, his show's done pretty well. So best of luck to you guys, and I'll tell Mike you said hello.
Yeah, man. Appreciate you.
Thank you, Mike. Appreciate it.
Good to visit with you. Mike Hoss, play-by-play voice of the Saints. A lot to get to today, Chad. One of them, the NFL is rigged response, right? With all of the conference championship calls, flags, missed calls, eye in the sky, not able to signal to the white hat in the NFC Championship game about the Devontae Smith catch. They get to the line, they snap it too fast. We've got the guy coming on that can explain the mechanism behind what happened on championship weekend and what we should expect from the all-star crew in Super Bowl 57. Plus, the USFL, what changes are coming to some of the rules that we saw implemented and some of the rules that the NFL was paying attention to last spring. Mike Pereira, NFL rules analyst for Fox Sports. He joins us next on OutKick 360.
It's so crazy because Tom Brady is just a touch older than me. I believe now there are no NFL players older than me, which that's the first time in my life I can say that.
Okay.
So now I feel really old. Now I feel truly and really old.
I'm sorry, man. God, that's horrible. I didn't know that feeling. I'm
Maybe
sorry.
there's
I
a punter
apologize.
or a kicker. I'll have to check. Maybe I'm hoping there's like an old, like a long time punter, kicker, or a long snapper that's older than me, but I don't think so. And it's amazing to me thinking about Brady the last few years. Like, I know how I feel when I wake up in the morning. I can't even imagine attempting to play in the NFL like this.
Right? Yeah. I mean, well, I don't even know if last season should have happened, but that's not up for me. It's not for anybody to sit there and argue.
I don't have the drive Tom Brady has. I'm very willing to admit that.
Right.
It seemed to me, just as an outsider with no inside information whatsoever, that he retired and that he engaged in normal life for the first time in a long time. Was like, yeah, this sucks. I'm getting back to the NFL.
I don't like the daycare thing. I love my kids, but I don't like dropping it off. I don't want to go play pickleball at 3:00 in the afternoon. Like, let's get back to normal. But it'd be interesting. Like I don't know if we'll see another quarterback take it that far, Andy, in the NFL. Like, he really pushed the
Aaron
limits,
Rodgers,
right?
Yeah, you got Aaron Rodgers going to be 39. You got him hinting at retirement now, and it does feel like the game's maybe taking a little more toll on his body than Brady. Maybe there's some ayahuasca that'll fix that, but it's crazy that it lasted this long. I mean, I think back to how much my life, I graduated college in 2000 and, working my first job, watching Tom Brady lead the Patriots when they were the underdogs to the win against the Rams in the Super Bowl and thinking, well, that's a cool story. 6th-round guy, hope the career works out for him. And the level of winning and just consistency, I'm not sure we're going to see it again.
No. And I don't, especially with a quarterback who has that tenacity, he also puts in everything into the game. Like, it's like he can't take a breather. And it just, he has a different workflow. It kind of reminded me of what Kobe Bryant used to do in the NBA. Or you can go on and name them on.
Yeah.
But now, but I'm interested to see now, what that looks like in the future. And does this, and I'll ask you this, because this news could break while we're down here in Mobile. Todd Monken, Georgia offensive coordinator. Does this make room for him now to potentially say, okay, I can go to Tampa. We can go find a quarterback that works for me in my system and maybe take over the offensive coordinator position? What have your thoughts been on the Monken Buccaneer stuff?
Are you ready for Stetson Bennett as the Buccaneers starting quarterback? Are we ready to live in a world where Stetson Bennett makes that pirate ship go boom? Can
I'm
that
excited.
happen?
It can in the 6th round.
It's very interesting because, Monken, I think, you look at that tenure with Jameis Winston in Tampa, it didn't go as well as anybody would have wanted. And maybe Monken going, well, if I had a different quarterback, one who didn't put the ball in harm's way as often, perhaps that works out.
Love whenever we have the chance to visit with our next guest.
Absolutely.
Welcome back, OutKick 360 across the OutKick network. Mike Pereira, Fox Sports NFL rules analyst. He is the head of officiating as well for the USFL, which returns this spring. The hubs have been announced. We'll get to that coming up. Mike, hope you're doing well.
I am doing great, and it's always been great being with you guys. So good to see you.
Absolutely. Before we get started on the rules and conference championship weekend and this NFL is rigged crowd, what's the top Brady story that comes to mind for you in your interactions with him?
Somebody asked me that this morning, and I said, the only thing I can really remember is I was at Foxborough in the stadium, and he came out before the game, as he does, and did like a sprint or a jog, I should say, around the field. And I didn't know Tom Brady from Adam. I mean, I never met him. I obviously knew who he was. And as he was running around, he was running by me, and he looked at me as he ran by and said, "Hi, Mike." And it made my day. I mean, that was like, that's like my most memorable thing. It's like Tom Brady actually said hello to me. I had no idea that he even knew who I was. And, as people have said that, he is a great guy, but I really haven't spent any time with him yet. Don't know if I will, but, we'll just see what's coming up.
Whenever you were the voice for all officials in the NFL, Mike, you, Dean Blandino, who replaced you, we had a voice. We had a voice of reason in a week like this, off of the weekend, off the Sunday, where there were so many calls and reaction to it from the fan perspective. How would you have handled Monday morning with the media and with fans if you were still in that position?
Well, I'd have to go to Roger Goodell first and say, "Do you want me to talk to the fans and the media and see what he has to say, what he would have to say?" I will have to say that since Dean and I, there's been kind of a clampdown on the interview process that comes out of the officiating department. And I don't think that's healthy. People are so invested in the game now, whether it is their hometown team, their fantasy team, their bet, whatever, that, I think they need to know, deserve to know, what happened. And if they can understand the rules better and understand the circumstance, then, I think it's better off. But to be kind of closed mouth is pretty difficult. Now, I think if it was me, my impression was that the championship games were just messy. I can't think of really a better word other than messy. I in particular didn't have a real problem with the calls. I just had a concern with, how they went about this and how it made officiating look, whether it was the awarding of another play to Kansas City because of a clock malfunction. Why did that happen? I mean, it really never was truly explained why it did happen. Why did we not get a replay review on the Devonta Smith catch on 4th down on the first series in Philadelphia, Eagles against San Francisco? There's a reason for most things that something falls outside of just judgment. And, judgment is judgment. I mean, it's hard to necessarily take side when it's judgment, but when it comes to mechanics and processes and things like that, so it's really reared their heads this weekend. I think I would have addressed both of those two issues right away, and then see if it calmed the storm a little bit.
Mike, speaking of mechanics and processes, I've noticed refs going further and further to stop a play that's dead, that's ruled dead. I've seen officials step in between the snap and the holder on a kick to not let them get up a practice kick if there's a timeout called or anything like that. And I heard a couple times, well, the crowd noise is really bad, so they had a hard time stopping the play. But I don't see that as a common issue across both the NFL and college football. Is that more common than we're aware of the inability to stop the play because of crowd noise when you're trying to blow a play dead? Because there's a lot of player safety concerns if half the players know the play's dead and half don't if the play continues.
Yeah, I don't think it's an issue. I mean, that obviously comes about from awarding Kansas City another play against Cincinnati. What happened there? And I think think what we're going through is the officiating department and the league itself has taken a positive step with what they call expedited reviews and video assists. So they're able to correct mistakes that are made in pretty close to real time. I think we're all for that, but there are some issues that still go along with it. And I think that's what happened, for example, in the play with Kansas City, where it seemed like they ran a play, but then they voided the play. And the reason was because really they created their own issue with this video assistant. The video assistant said, move the ball a half a yard, that the spot was off by a half a yard and the play clock was already beginning to run down. Yeah, it's right. They missed the spot by half a yard, but it was 3rd and 9. It wasn't like it was 3rd and a half yard.
Right.
It was insignificant then, which led to this series of having a hard time getting the play shut down. Not all the officials realizing that the clock was running when it shouldn't have been. And then, of course, what happens? You have another play, you shut it down, and then you kind of look. Sometimes you want to be lucky when you have an issue. Well, they sacked Mahomes, so it really wasn't going to give them another play. But guess what? There was a defensive holding, so they got an automatic first down. I think we have to be a little concerned about overuse of expedited reviews and video assistance. When it came to the Devonta Smith catch in that first series in the Eagles game, I mean, it is the way the rule is set up that the offense can run up and snap the ball as quickly as they can because the play clock starts automatically after the play is over. So Philadelphia rushes to the line. Nobody gets a chance to find the one angle that shows that the pass was incomplete. We didn't at Fox. New York didn't to initiate an expedited review. And, Shanahan, either for the 49ers, he didn't get a look, and it led him not to challenge. So, that whole thing just seems like it's a bit unfair to let such a critical call go unreviewed like that. So it's just, when you think of the fact and what makes games messy. I mean, when you have to stop to try to look to see if a ball hit a guide wire, when you have to stop because the chains broke and you have to get a set of backup chain for the second time in the playoffs and unravel the backup set of chain. It just was messy, and it ended up causing a lot of conversation. But the games aren't fixed. We all know that the games aren't fixed, but they seem like it to you if your team seems to be the brunt of many of the decisions, and you either lose your bet or you lose your fantasy team takes a loss. But it just wasn't a clean looking championship weekend.
Mike Pereira, our guest on OutKick 360. Are the best officials now in the media because it pays better?
Or the best officials in the media? I mean, it was actually Aaron Rodgers, I think, who made that comment, who said the reason that the officiating struggled because, their best white hats, have gone to the networks because they pay more money. Well, let me just say this. I was the first, and I wasn't even a white hat, and I was only on the field for 2 years before I went into the office. Blandino's never officiated a game in his life. I mean, he made one key call in one game that he thinks merits him all of the qualifications to be a king referee, and that one call that he made was in a beach Pro Bowl football game on a tight sideline catch. You could say the same for McCauley, and you certainly could say the same for Perry, and you could say the same for Sterator. He has a point. I certainly didn't leave it for the money. And Blandino, maybe there's a point there from his administrative side in leaving, but the fact is, I do think that officials are underappreciated, and I think they are underpaid for the magnitude of the game, and especially when it comes to the administrative side. Art McNally, who got into the Hall of Fame, 24 years he was the head of officiating. Jerry Seaman, 10. Me, I was there for 12. And since then, nobody's been there longer than 3. There's no continuity, and there needs to be more continuity. And I think there needs to be more value put on the position.
Given your profile and status, talking about officiating, Mike, do you see yourself as an advocate for officials everywhere at every level when you talk to anyone and you're talking about the process of officiating? Because we know there are issues finding officials at every level of almost every sport in America right now. So is that something that's important to you?
It's like critically important to me. It's more important to me than what I do with Fox, quite frankly. I have a foundation that gives scholarships to veterans to become sports officials in their communities. In the last 5 years now, we've given 800 scholarships around the country to get our veterans back doing something, getting them involved in the team again. I'm working on a program here in Sacramento now with a local high school football team and taking their seniors who aren't going to move on to play football at the community college level or above and trying to keep them involved in the game. I mean, these are young men, and I'm going to do it for all sports, but it's young men in the case of football at this point who've been playing football probably since they were 10 in the youth leagues. And now they've had coaching, discipline, teams, all this stuff. And now what happens to them? And I try to work this through the coach. What are we concerned about where these kids are going to go when they lose this regimen of practice and games? And so we're recruiting them to become officials, young men to become officials, and women in sports. And so it's what drives me now. It's what drives me is to look at the big picture of officiating and try to address the shortage, and then equally try to address the reputation. I mean, it's so easy to bash them, but these are quality people. I mean, these are people who have the guts that all these people that bash them don't have. These are people that put their butts on the line, you know, when they know that they're going to get criticized. And so we've got to change somehow the way that people treat them and the abuse that they have to go through and the lack of respect that they have. Because in reality, and nobody really wants to admit to it, but it's true. I mean, you don't have officials, you don't have a game. I mean, that's just the way it is. And poor high schools right now are having to play on Thursdays, Saturdays, because they don't have enough officials to officiate all the games on Friday. That's how dire the situation is. So yeah, that's my huge concern.
Mike, final thing on the current status of officiating. Carl Sheffers is the white hat for Super Bowl 57 with the All-Star crew. Can you take us through the short version of how they go about choosing the All-Star crew, with which referee will be wearing the white hat for the Super Bowl?
Yeah, it's not too complicated, but they're graded with everything they do. I mean, they're practically graded for when they go to the bathroom during the pregame meeting. So it's just a matter of how they grade out over the course of the year, not only just with their calls on the field, but it's their rules knowledge by way of tests, their physical ability, all the stuff, all kind of factors into a grade. And then you either end up in the top tier, second tier, the third tier, or it could be fourth and fifth tier. You don't want to be on fourth and fifth tier, because if you're on fourth and fifth tier, that's your first step on the way to being sent home for the rest of your officiating career. So you go to the first tier, and who qualifies for the first tier? It might be 5 guys. And then you look and you say, okay, who hasn't officiated? If all of these 5 have, who's had it last? And then you say, okay, here's our guy. And in this case, it's Carl Sheffers, who is a very accomplished referee, his 3rd one that he's going to have. California guy whose father was a great official and a great teacher. People say, well, Sheffers' crew led the league in the number of penalties called this year, which is true. But this is not Sheffers' crew. I mean, this is an all-star group. And you know, I happen to be a crew guy. I think you should advance crews. Guys that work together all year long, I think they should move together through the playoffs, but that's not the way it works. It's the best officials, not necessarily the best officiating. But I just hope that we in the game in Arizona on Sunday, and that we pick up the papers on Monday and go on all the talk shows and listen to the talk shows. And I hope we don't hear one stinking word about Carl Cheffers or anybody else on his crew or anything about officiating, period. It's a funny thing. I always consider, it's not funny, but I always considered this the most important game, the Super Bowl, for a different reason when it comes to officiating. If you screw up the Super Bowl, or people think that you screw up the Super Bowl, they're going to remember that through the whole off season. If you have a good game in the Super Bowl and you go unnoticed, then the previous stuff kind of drifts away. And so based on what happened this past Sunday, a lot of pressure on them, but they've got good experience coupled with a couple of new guys, and I think they'll be fine.
We're headed to season 2 with the USFL, and we've got hubs announced officially: Birmingham, Memphis, Canton, Ohio, and Detroit. And I'm assuming we'll have some adjustments to some rules, because I know you're all about implementing other things that you couldn't do in year 1 as you got things off the ground. What are we looking forward to this spring with USFL from your department?
Well, it's interesting, not a lot. Of course, it changes now with 4 hubs, so we're going to be playing in 4 different locations. So I've had to add officials, and which is fine. The group that we basically have is 80% of it is made up of officials that are on the NFL developmental list. We looked at the rules, and we were pretty pleased with what it was last year. We were still a little bit concerned about game times, especially now in the hub format. You're going to have the possibility of one game playing into another. So we wanted to, if we could, guarantee that we played them in a 3-hour window. So last year we wound the clock after incomplete passes in the first and third quarters, which sped up our game. We thought it was a good change, but still we think it wasn't quite enough. So we're gonna wind the clock, and in the second and fourth quarters also, after incomplete passes, up until the 5-minute mark of the quarter. And we'll see in the first couple of weeks where that makes our time frame fall. Going to take away a couple of plays, I understand that, but still, I think that if the game time gets where we want it to be, I think it will be a good change. And then we're going to adopt what everybody asks about it. Everybody, maybe you go on the social media, and the rule everybody hates. Why, if you fumble the ball at the 10-yard line and it goes out of bounds at the 8, you bring the ball back at the 10. But if you fumble the ball at the 2 and it goes out of bounds in the end zone, you lose the ball. It's inconsistent. You should get the ball back at the spot of the fumble. So we're listening to the fans, and we're listening to the critics. So a forward fumble into and out of bounds in the end zone will go back to the spot of the fumble, and the offense will keep the ball. And it will be interesting to see what kind of comment that we end up getting from from the people that are watching our game. But again, I think that's another rule change that makes a certain amount of sense, especially when everybody likes offense. Mm-hmm. So you're keeping the ball a little bit. But other than that, I mean, really everything is pretty good. We're going to try to stay away from, as you recall, we changed some rules during the season, and we like that we could do that in year 1. We're going to try not to do that this year. I mean, we figure that we are good at where we are. We're going to make one slight adjustment to the kickoff. I mean, we like kickoff returns. 81% of our kickoffs were returned last year, kicking off from the 25. Well, we want to get it to 90. So we're going to kick off from the 20. So we are likely to push that number up toward 90% of kickoffs being returned, which we put in elements to keep it safe. I mean, we don't let the kicking team recover the ball if it goes beyond 20 yards. Kicking team can't get a head start. Defensive receiving team has to put a minimum of 9 guys in what we call a setup zone. We didn't have too many injuries last year. If we did, we wouldn't have gone forward with this, but we think with these formational adjustments that we're good in that area. So we're excited. And for me, I mean, I am the replay center. We will have the replay center in Los Angeles again. And so I kind of look at it and think of it from the NFL perspective to this. To me, the NFL thing is with me right now. I'm commenting on what others have done. And now when it gets into the USFL, I'm doing it. And others will be commenting on what I'm doing. So I'll take more flack probably, but it was a lot of fun. And it's the first spring league I've been involved with that has gone longer than 1 year.
Yes.
So I'm really excited about that.
Yes.
In the final 15 seconds, you are the one who has reviewed roughing the passer. I watched multiple games where you did that. You took the flag back. How easy is that compared to whenever the NFL tried to review defensive pass interference?
I think it certainly is easier, but I think it would be harder on the NFL side than it is in what we do in the USFL, because they give more protection even to the quarterback than we are going to give them. So it would be hard on the NFL, I think, to review roughing the passer, but for us, not as difficult.
That crushes our dreams, Chad.
Yes.
Yes.
But my dreams are now revived with that rule change with the fumble into the end zone.
Yep.
So great job.
See, there you go. Now we'll see if the NFL will follow that up. Yeah.
They'll be watching, that's for sure, on all these rules adjustments from the USFL. Mike, thank you so much for joining us. Great perspective as always. We love having you.
You're welcome. Good to be with you.
Yeah. Mike Pereira, USFL head of officiating, and he is the rules analyst, the guy for Fox Sports, and he'll have plenty of coverage for Super Bowl 57.
It's always amazing to me that people want to be officials. So I applaud a lot of them, especially at the youth level, high school level. People that want to do it, we need to do a better job at sometimes applauding them for actually wanting to go out there and do it. It is not a fun job. There's a lot of things in sports I look at and say, why wouldn't you want to do this? Whether it be a job in sports, right? Oh, man, that just looks like a lot of fun on the weekends. Spending my Saturday or entire day refereeing youth basketball does not look fun to me. And I'm as big a sports fan as you can find. So I think important what Mike was saying about what he's doing to try to get people in football officiating at a younger age and even people that are older to be a part of it. It's a problem. It's becoming a bigger problem too.
Well, and you have to deal with parents and you have to deal with gamblers on any level. If it's not parents, it's gamblers. Speaking of parents, there's got to be a parent that's upset with our next story, a 6-year-old, and what happened on an app.
Livid. Maybe
you can relate. I don't know. That's next on OutKick 360.
I witnessed, Dennis Price and C-Spray and all these people just do such amazing things, and we continue to get asked about Afghanistan and what we didn't do in Ukraine. Like, why would you, beyond Aziz, it's no brainer why I would go help Aziz. Why would we continue to help these people? And, I think the easy answer is it's the right thing to do. When the governments of the world completely failed, including our own, it was very discouraging. But what brought me hope was to see that when the governments of the world failed, good people stood up and did what the governments wouldn't do and couldn't probably do. And did the right thing. And that was really encouraging for me, because I think all of us kind of struggle with hope in our country right now because of the political divide and things that we don't agree with. But it was really hopeful to see that when the governments don't do the right thing, people do. And one of the things myself and C-Spray were asking in this interview is, why would you do it? And of course we said, because it's the right thing to do. But C-Spray was asked a question that I think is important that we can all learn from. He was asked, was it worth it? Was it worth it? And he said, it doesn't have to be. It doesn't have to be worth it to do the right thing. And whether it's something like this or in your personal lives, I think we all have the ability to do the right thing in our own little spheres of our life. And we always try to balance an ROI, what are we going to get out of it? What's the return on investment? But it doesn't always have to be worth it to do the right thing. And in this case, I don't know if it was worth it or not. I thought it was worth it to Aziz and his family and the 17,000 Afghans, and I believe that burden God put in our heart. I think it was worth it to God for us to be obedient and go do that call. But I think the world could learn something from this. That there is hope. That there's good people around and will stand up, do the right things. People that supported us were not people that I typically agree with. There's a lot of people that follow me on Instagram that hate me and bash me for my conservative views and stuff like that. But they were writing me like, "Hey, I don't like you, but what you're doing is awesome, and where can I support? Where can I give money?" And it was so cool. And we had this Jewish organization that they wanted to pay for 2 planes, which was like $1.5 million, a big donation. And they called me back and they said, "Hey, we tried to make the donation, but we can't do it." And I was like, oh, why? Did I give you the wrong routing number or something? They said, no, we're a Jewish organization, and Mighty Oaks Foundation, my foundation, is a Christian organization, and we can't give you that money. And I said, okay, but you do realize we're rescuing Muslims, right? And we kind of laughed and moved forward, and they made that donation. It was just an amazing moment in time where politics, religion, like nothing else mattered besides good people standing up and do the right thing for other people. And it'll always be like just super special to me to have been part of that.
Yeah, no, I mean, it's the whole thing. And like I said to the audience, go ahead and get the book, Saving Aziz. You can get it anywhere you want to get books. It's an incredible story, and I think it's something young people especially should learn about. And everyone, because it does go to show that there's good people. You know, everyone wants to be at each other's throats these days. That's kind of what the media teaches you to do. Hate each other. Everyone's a villain. If you disagree, you have to hate. Not true. Not true at all. So I think your story is represents that you can, a lot of good out there. Now on the Ukraine, because I do want to talk about this, because the war is ongoing. What was your experience when it comes to the situation in Ukraine?
Well, it's changed. It's changed since I began. You know, it started in February. We had ceasefires on the ground before the invasion because we knew it was coming. We were watching it unfold, and then I went immediately after the invasion. I was in Ukraine, days after the invasion, and originally we went there to see, hey, how can we help? Afghanistan is a lot different. People couldn't go in Afghanistan and load up mass amounts of people to get them out. We were able to do that. Ukraine, people could drive a bus across the border, open the door, load it up, and get people out. So the mass evacs were not something we needed to do. And one of the things about special operations is you do what's special, you do what other people can't.
Chad, a 6-year-old, ordered himself a Grubhub delivery, $1,000 order, according to MLive in Michigan. Chesterfield, Michigan. His dad, Keith Stonehouse. Great name, Keith.
Keith Stonehouse. Keith Stonehouse sounds like a made-up anchor name in Anchorman.
Yes, or a betting expert.
Wes Mantooth.
You can play this game as if it's already been played.
Your Stone Cold Lock with Keith Stonehouse.
Get stoned with Stonehouse.
We've got the Super Bowl like it's already been played.
His mom was catching a movie with friends, and the 6-year-old ordered $1,000 on the app. Chad, your
is,
thoughts as a father of
terrifying.
A child around the same age.
Terrifying. Also, you cannot give your children, especially of this age, access to a phone ordering device in any way. So
multiple delivery drivers, by the way.
My daughters, they have a tablet, and on that they have like Amazon Prime, but it's set up to only their kid stuff, and they have games they can access. But there's a stop, like there's an automatic stop. They'll go to something, and it's like, to play this game, it's $3.99 or whatever, and they have to go to us and say, can we play this? And the answer is always no. We're not paying for any games. You get plenty of free games with the services that we already pay for also. So you're going to play those games. I would be furious, Hutton, if this happened to me. But also, I don't think I'm going to put myself in that situation where they're going to be on a phone where they can order something.
Well, the kid grabbed his dad's phone, and so he had the app. So they ordered, let's see, jumbo shrimp, 5 orders of that, chili cheese fries, ice cream salads. That's ice cream and salads. Grape leaves.
Ice cream salad, though, sounds kind of like the best of a couple of different worlds. So
I don't know about that.
We can make that work.
Rice and much more. It took multiple delivery drivers to courier that food to the Stonehouse residents.
Amazing. Hutton, I had a terrible realization last night as we look at all this food that was ordered.
Yes.
I would be furious about that. But something that didn't make me furious, but I just kind of had to gasp when I thought about this last night. So as I'm laying on the couch, shivering, in between sweating and shivering with a fever, I go and send out the group text because I now have my roster for my softball team that I'm coaching to my daughter. So I get all the parents on a group text. I'm like, this is something I can do while I'm sitting here. Send out the welcome group text. Hey, welcome to the Red Sox. We got 8 of you coming back. We got 4 new girls. Look forward to meeting all of you, and kind of get the group text going that way. And then as I'm sitting there, I'm reminded of something that my wife, Angie, told me before, that you realize you're going to have to coach Lucy now, too, since you coached Evie. And Hutton, when that realization sunk in, this was a real trying time for me because my 3.5-year-old, I'm thinking, I've not even thought about her playing a sport yet because Evie goes from tap dance to modern dance,
I know,
to basketball, to softball, to piano all the time. And I'm thinking, we are about 6 months away if we put Lucy on the same path.
×2.
To her playing soccer, at 4 years old. And I cannot wrap my mind around that right now. So at some point, I'm going to have to choose. I'm either going to coach Lucy or Evie, and then maybe miss the other one's games while I'm coaching the other one.
Made.
I mean,
I have a prediction. You're going to go to the winning team.
Yeah. I let the teams decide which one I coach.
Yeah.
I'll just tell each head coach, which will really be my assistant, if you win the first couple games, I may jump on.
Yeah,
I'm like Sean Payton. I could really kind of suss this out, and then we'll see where I want to go.
I take that back, though. Yeah, you will allow, if the assistant coach wins, you'll be cool with it.
Oh,
If the other team is losing because
I'll step in.
You need a defense.
Well, if I see poor leadership with the other coach, that's where I'll step in.
If you need a great pitcher, Chad Withrow is your guy as your coach.
I'll be like a policeman commandeering a vehicle. I'll just mid-practice after an 0-3 start
Grand
come
Theft
out
Auto.
and say, okay, I'm running this team now. You need to go sit on the side. It's like when Gene Hackman shows up in Hoosiers and the guy from the Towns just coaching the team, and he steps out there and tells him to hand over his whistle, that he's the coach now. That's going to be me with this youth sports experiment.
I thought you were going to say the realization that you had to make 2 trips for apparel to get the baseball bat and all that stuff.
Well,
you're going to keep everything around, right? All of Evie's will be hand-me-downs?
Practice starts next week. And, for those that unfamiliar, the way The Last of Us is unfamiliar with geography, for those unfamiliar with weather patterns, early February in Nashville is pretty cold.
Mm-hmm.
So
case in point today.
Yeah, getting practices in outdoors. I mean, it forces you. We can rent out some indoor facilities.
I've often said the reason why I grew up hating soccer is because the first year I played it for Super Mario Brothers when I was 5, it was freezing. And you're out there with your uniform, which is a short sleeve shirt and shorts. And so I hated it.
Hutton was never the same since.
I wasn't.
Won't watch a single second of the World Cup. Just
the
because
NFL will not be the same
experiment.
either because Brady has retired. And guess what Sean Payton said? That's next.
college football's in trouble. There's a lot of people trying to keep it from happening.
I think it's a general consensus across the college football landscape. We want to play football.
College football is a huge part of the fall. It's a huge part of Americana itself.
It just really felt like people in the country needed college football to just feel a little sense of normal.
Big news from the Big Ten as the conference releasing its 10-game football schedule.
We go home thinking there's going to be practice the next day. Everybody gets a text, stay home, everything's canceled.
Big Ten fall football season has been canceled.
We just believe collectively there's too much uncertainty.
I guess what I'm trying to understand, though, Kevin, is that was the same position you had 6 days ago.
The Big Ten is an unmitigated disaster.
There was a ton of confusion. There was presidents saying one thing, there was coaches saying another.
Players had to be silent, coaches had to be silent, ADs had to be silent.
People said, how does what you just did make any sense?
And nobody really knew what the heck happened when they voted to cancel the season.
You make this huge historical announcement, and then Kevin Warren never does a press conference to explain it. It was like a masterclass in how not to handle a crisis.
The word really that was lacking in all this is transparency.
It felt like a lot of stuff was happening behind closed doors.
Even today, we still don't know what occurred.
So you don't tell us parents, that's fine, but you're not telling the young men that it affects.
We have to make a decision to save the season. What about the history books? What about the rivalry games? What about Paul Bunyan's axe? How is that not going to go to a team this year?
This is a failure of epic magnitude. The Big Ten presidents and leaders should be held accountable for the disastrous decisions that they're making.
Then the commissioner doubles down, saying his decision will not be revisited.
And that's the point it felt like a war was declared on the Big Ten and Kevin Warren.
Everything turned political.
Because if this is medical, then you would have stopped the game of football a long time ago.
I think the Big Ten leaders will tell you that they probably made a mistake in hindsight.
If I had the chance to do it all over last year, I would make the same decisions that we made.
Just like that, the final hour is here. Glad you're with us. OutKick 360 on the Wednesday edition. Coming up in 20 minutes, Clay Travis will join us. Chad, you and I woke up with the same reaction. We were surprised, shocked that Tom Brady retired, given what we thought was going to set up another team and another possible Super Bowl run. After what he went through last offseason, the 40-day retirement, separating from Giselle, the divorce becomes final during the season, but then you also had He left the team in training camp for about 11 or 12 days. All of that led up to a season that was less than spectacular, and he had the option to go and play elsewhere. And that was just based on the contract status with Tampa Bay. He could have also returned to Tampa Bay based on reports. But instead, we woke up to this video.
Good morning, guys. I'll get to the point right away. I'm retiring for good. I know the process was a pretty big deal last time, so when I woke up this morning, I figured I'd just press record and let you guys know first. So it won't be long-winded. You only get one super emotional retirement essay, and I used mine up last year. So really thank you guys so much, to every single one of you, for supporting me, my family, my friends, my teammates, my competitors. I could go on forever. There's too many. Thank you guys for allowing me to live my absolute dream. I wouldn't change a thing. Love you all.
Concise and emotional. You can hear that in his voice, even if you're not watching him there. And that, Chad, when I watched it for the first time, I had to rewatch it. I'm like, this is believable. And on so many different levels. Like, aside from the fact, do you believe that he's actually retired and he's staying retired? I believe that he actually did that in one take.
Oh, I do too.
You know, like that's the other part of it, where I think it comes across very sincere, and it takes you behind the scenes a bit of the emotion behind the decision, both last year and immediate in the here and now with his decision to step away from the game after 23 seasons.
And it makes me a little bit sad that we're not going to have Tom Brady on our TVs on Sunday anymore with the length of his career. Mentioned it before, I'll turn 41 in February, and this month. And I was in high school when Tom Brady was drafted. So that just goes to show you how long this guy's been a part of our sports lives. So I'm going to miss the guy. That's what I felt watching that video, is that it's going to be weird not having Tom Brady a part of the sport actively. Now, he's still going to be on our televisions. He's going to be on Fox Sports. He's going to be around. He's going to be a part of the game, but not the same way, obviously.
Now, there was immediate speculation. There's like, oh, is Brady going to join the booth for the Super Bowl? That's been put to rest via multiple reports that it's remaining a two-man booth, and it should. You don't want to throw a three-man booth in for a crew that's worked together the entire season, only to replace Greg Olsen with Tom Brady next year.
And Greg Olsen's really
good.
He's
been very good. He's been very good, and Burkhardt too. And that was reported. Brady would be paired with Burkhardt for the number one crew as soon as his career was over, whenever that is. 10 years, $375 million. And Olsen has handled it extremely well. And, I think we all asked the question, like, why is he agreeing to do this knowing he's about to be replaced by Brady? Well, view Greg Olsen now compared to where we were a year ago in the analysis of the game. Especially with so much hate for Tony Romo now. I'm like the one who still enjoys Tony Romo calling games.
But do you not think that he's different?
I don't think he's different in his love of the game. I think that's what makes him different from the milquetoast broadcast that no one talks about on the regional broadcast.
I think his love of the game I've always enjoyed, but it's the he started out as someone who was just he could almost tell the future and would tell you exactly what was going on. Now he's morphed into someone that's not that.
Well, I wonder, it doesn't necessarily have to be Romo's problem. That could be someone telling him, hey, back it down. Don't tell us what's coming every single play. He's extremely he's a great fortune teller when it comes to that.
Yeah, I just think he's gotten worse. In the beginning, I loved the guy, and I don't hate him now. I don't think he's awful. It's just different. He's it's very different. It's a weird sensation watching those games that he's a part of. I think Greg Olsen's terrific. He's going to be great as a number 2 at Fox if he's there. He's going to be great wherever he ends up on television. Now the curiosity shifts towards Tom Brady and what he's going to be like on television calling games. Hutton, it's a very different discipline.
Yes.
Between studio to calling games to everything else. Bobby Carpenter had a great point. Tom Brady would be a terrific interviewer of current NFL players and coaches.
Well, okay, let's go down
If
this
you
path.
do that, they do that sit down with Aaron Andrews almost every week on Fox. I could see Tom Brady in some of those sitting down talking to current players. Terry Bradshaw does it occasionally. Jimmy Johnson will do it.
Yeah, you do both. Yeah, I see what you're
but
saying.
doing a little bit of both of those.
The question's going to come up, like, is he going to be able to be critical of those in the league immediately? I think absolutely yes. And it's because he's 46 and every quarterback in the playoffs was 29 or younger. I mean, he barely knows the current crop compared to the group that he played with for the vast majority of his career. Brock Purdy's being asked about Brady saying something about him or LeBron saying something about him, and his reaction's the same. It's like, they tweeted about me? They're watching? If they've interacted with him, it's been post-game briefly. The group of players now, someone came up to him after the Bucs game and I believe it was a Cowboys player, final game, asking for the jersey. And I should have read into it more, but he was like, we can do this later. I'm not giving you my jersey. Not today.
What a bold move by a player to ask for his jersey after the game.
But a lot of, how often that happens. Swap jerseys. Like, no, not really. And I don't recall Brady ever doing that, really, on the 50.
Him. Good for him not to do that.
But he probably knew that was his last game, and I didn't read into it that way because I thought it was going to be his last game with Tampa, not period.
So here's what would shock me is if Brady's not a big part of Super Bowl Sunday on Fox. He's going to do something.
Oh, he's going to be
Super Bowl. He's not doing the game.
He's going to dominate the commercials with 80 for Brady is what he's going to do.
Well, I also think that Fox is going to have him there doing something, whether it's on-field, pregame work, whether it's a pre-produced segment, whether it's something. I'd be surprised if he's not, with the contract he signed with Fox, I'm going to be shocked if he's not doing something for that 5-hour pregame up to the Super Bowl.
My guess would be his first interview is going to be in his own podcast next week with Jim Gray. And if you haven't listened to the Let's Go podcast, absolutely listen to that. It is, if you want to know what he's going to be like in the booth, listen to him. He has a whole segment this past week on NFL rules changes and how he thinks it could implement the speed of the game, speed of review, and the mechanics of is this play reviewable or not. And it makes sense. Is it implementable? Can you implement this in an off season? I don't know. It takes too many votes probably to get it done. But check that out. But also, aside from that, I think the way to use him is he does the interview with someone about why now and the entire past 12 to 18 months, which is a side that other than cameras behind the scenes, we haven't really seen all that much of through, unless it's a social media post or it's through like a TMZ article, right? Like on who's moving next door to who.
Yeah.
And where are the kids living. That's how I would present the first on-camera feel of Brady with Fox, personally, with Fox Sports and the Super Bowl coverage.
I'm doing a lot.
You've got 24-hour pregame show,
That's what I'm saying. I'm doing a lot. I'm not, yes, to what you're saying, but I'm doing it all. I want him there on the field with the Fox NFL Sunday crew doing a segment, doing something with them, talking about the game. I want that full interview with Aaron Andrews or whoever leading into him on the field. And then, hey, welcome our new Fox teammate, Tom Brady. And then he, talks about the game and leaves. Now, it's all about what he's going to agree to also. Mm-hmm. I don't know that he wants to be around it or be out on site. But, if I'm Fox Sports, I absolutely want Tom Brady to be front and center all day on Super Bowl Sunday. You've got a good 5 to 7 hours of pregame coverage you're going to have that day. Plenty of opportunities to feature Tom Brady. I think we'll see him.
And you're going to see about 80 commercials for the preview of 80 for Brady.
So my sister is taking my aunt on opening night to watch 80 for Brady. My aunt requested this.
Okay.
My Aunt Mitzi, who's probably watching this right now, watches us every day, wants to see this movie. I say that to say I finally found...
We should have her review it.
I found the target demo.
We should have her review
right?
it.
Like this is the target demo is my Aunt Mitzi and her friends. My sister doesn't even want to see it. but she's taking her because she wanted to go on opening night to 80 for Brady. I will say it again. I've gone on record before. This looks like the worst movie in the history of film, and I will not be seeing it. But I'll be happy to get Aunt Mitzi on the show to give us a review of 80 for
About
Brady.
to see him on all the red carpets with the new film, the Academy Award winning film.
I saw I'm not even joking here. I saw an OutKick story pop up that it said one of Brady's co-stars referred to his acting abilities as Jimmy Stewart-like, and then said that he has a future in movies and acting if he wants it.
Oh, well, great.
I mean,
was it Jane Fonda?
I don't know. One of these women on the
One
screen
of them,
right
one
now.
of them said that they nearly fainted.
Sally
So-
Field. Jane Fonda's hair in this film just horrifically bad. Got to be a wig. Lily Tomlin. And then the woman from West Side Story, Rita Moreno, was the other one.
I think it's just possibly age.
Look at my
Chad.
knowledge of aging actresses. in
Chad the
Hollywood.
ageist.
I'm the opposite. I knew everyone on that. I celebrate their entire catalog.
Except
all
for
of
that
them.
hair, apparently.
The hair's bad. I think it's a character choice. She probably knows it's bad.
Chad, yesterday, as I was leaving the show, I was not chilled like you.
Yep.
We were discussing Fox Sports and NFL on Fox and the pregame. You're going to hear a lot of voices here. I was discussing with our crew how long before we hear Sean Payton, saddle up with the "Let's Ride," Broncos country, "Let's Ride." Well, in fact, that has happened during the season, and you'll hear multiple voices here: Howie Long, Michael Strahan. It ends with Sean Payton, who treats this catchphrase much like Chad and I would.
Bucs NFL, let's ride. That's all you need for me to be laughing at that. Fox NFL Sunday, let's ride.
Fox NFL, let's ride.
Fox NFL, let's ride.
Just the abrupt "Let's Ride."
Fox NFL, let's ride. That's great.
Time to get to work, Russell.
Now we need the Russell Wilson next to Sean Payton.
Oh, and then a montage of all the college quarterbacks that were doing this for their photo shoots.
Well, that "Let's Ride" from Sean Payton was very similar to Russell Wilson's "Let's Ride" after the loss. Remember when he said it like he was almost ashamed to say it?
But he has to.
Thank you, guys. Let's ride.
It's on the script, Chad. For
Well,
the NFL is rig crowd. That's scripted. He has to say it.
Remember, he was done at the podium answering questions, and he ended with,
"That's right.
Thank you guys for all your hard work. Broncos country, let's ride." And he just walked away after an awful loss. Tough year for old Russell Wilson.
No doubt. Coming up, Clay Travis. But first, the story from TMZ involving the Eagles 10 days before kickoff of the Super Bowl. Eagles offensive lineman Josh Sills indicted on rape and kidnapping charges just 11 days before the Eagles will face off against the Chiefs. According to prosecutors in Ohio, the charges stem from an incident that happened in Ohio back in 2019. And, I mean, the details are available. You can see this at OutKick as well as TMZ. But he has been placed on the commissioner's exempt list, which means he's getting paid, but he's not a part of the Eagles organization based on that status. And he'll remain there until Goodell removes him from the exempt list, reinstates him, or something happens with this legal process. But the Eagles released a statement saying what you would expect. The organization is aware of the legal matter involving Josh Sills. We've been in communication with the league office. We're in the process of gathering more information. We have no further comment at this time. That from the Eagles with their backup O-lineman.
Quickly to a
Yes.
lighter note.
Yes.
We'll transition quickly from that to something lighter. Alan in the YouTube chat says,
Alan,
what does the 80 stand for in 80 for Brady? And I had to respond and say, it's one of the ladies' 80th birthdays. These are important plot points, Hutton, to 80 for Brady. That title can be confusing. Is it 80 people? What's the 80 mean? I think
they're
the
traveling.
80,
aren't they traveling?
they're traveling to the Super Bowl for, I believe, Jane Fonda's 80th her character. Don't know her character's name. Her 80th birthday.
Chad, a prediction. Watch. Jane Fonda will interview Tom Brady at the Super Bowl.
Oh, you think so?
Yeah,
do you think
all of this is promotion for the movie? Anything he does.
Do you think that
Gronk included?
Like, I think Super Bowl, I think of the next Marvel movie's going to debut their trailer. I don't think 80 for Brady is going to be that hyped up. Do we think the studio is going to spend that much money to hype this thing up at the Super Bowl? Maybe.
How much is Fox paying Brady? $375 million. Where's the Super Bowl this year?
Brady is a producer on this, right? So he's probably getting a back-end cut.
I mean, I think we're going to see the film even if we don't want to see the film. That's my prediction.
What if they do a one-night only?
It's a movie, sorry, not a film.
Even before it comes out in theaters? What if they do a one-night only airing of it on Fox right after the game? We're going to show you 80 for Brady in its entirety right after the Super Bowl
Commercial
ends.
free. Clay Travis joins us. We hit the big headlines. We compared the Brady brand and what it could become to a crazy figure involving the Jordan brand just over the last 5 years. We'll talk GOATs next on OutKick 360.
It's so crazy because Tom Brady is just a touch older than me. I believe now there are no NFL players older than me, which that's the first time in my life I can say that.
Okay.
So now I feel really old. Now I feel truly and really old.
I'm sorry, man. God, that's horrible. I didn't know that feeling. I'm
Maybe
sorry.
there's
I
a punter
apologize.
or a kicker. I'll have to check. Maybe I'm hoping there's like an old, like a long time punter, kicker, or a long snapper that's older than me, but I don't think so. And it's amazing to me thinking about Brady the last few years. Like, I know how I feel when I wake up in the morning. I can't even imagine attempting to play in the NFL like this.
Right? Yeah. I mean, well, I don't even know if last season should have happened, but that's not up for me. It's not for anybody to sit there and argue.
I don't have the drive Tom Brady has. I'm very willing to admit that.
Right.
It seemed to me, just as an outsider with no inside information whatsoever, that he retired and that he engaged in normal life for the first time in a long time. I was like, yeah, this sucks. I'm getting back to the NFL.
I don't like the daycare thing. I love my kids, but I don't like dropping it off. I don't want to go play pickleball at 3 o'clock in the afternoon. Like, let's get back to normal. But it'd be interesting. Like, I don't know if we'll see another quarterback take it that far, Andy, in the NFL. Like, he really pushed the
Aaron
limits,
Rodgers,
right?
Yeah, you got Aaron Rodgers going to be 39. You got him hinting at retirement now, and it does feel like the game's maybe taking a little more toll on his body than Brady. Maybe there's some ayahuasca that'll fix that, but it's crazy that it lasted this long. I mean, I think back to how much my life, I graduated college in 2000 and, working my first job, watching Tom Brady lead the Patriots when they were the underdogs to the win against the Rams in the Super Bowl and thinking, well, that's a cool story. 6th-round guy, hope the career works out for him. And the level of winning and just consistency, I'm not sure we're going to see it again.
No. And I don't, especially with a quarterback who has that tenacity, he also puts in everything into the game. Like, it's like he can't take a breather. And it just, he has a different workflow. It kind of reminded me of what Kobe Bryant used to do in the NBA. Or you can go on and name them on.
Yeah.
But now, but I'm interested to see now, what that looks like in the future. And does this, and I'll ask you this, because this news could break while we're down here in Mobile. Todd Monken, Georgia offensive coordinator. Does this make room for him now to potentially say, okay, I can go to Tampa. We can go find a quarterback that works for me in my system and maybe take over the offensive coordinator position? What have your thoughts been on the Monken Buccaneer stuff?
Are you ready for Stetson Bennett as the Buccaneers starting quarterback? Are we ready to live in a world where Stetson Bennett makes that pirate ship go boom? Can
I'm
that
excited.
happen?
It can in the 6th round.
It's very interesting because, Monken, I think, you look at that tenure with Jameis Winston in Tampa, it didn't go as well as anybody would have wanted. And maybe Monken going, well, if I had a different quarterback, one who didn't put the ball in harm's way as often, perhaps that works out.
Discussing Tom Brady's retirement, Sean Payton's arrival with the Denver Broncos, the Jordan brand, the WNBA, and more. Clay Travis joins us.
We talk about it all.
OutKick 360. Chad, how did you find out about Brady's retirement?
So Clay's going to love this. So Clay, this morning, I'm dying with a stomach bug that one of my daughters brought home from school. I'm in bed. It's about 9 a.m. probably, trying to sleep through the sickness. My wife opens the door to the guest room that I'm sleeping in because I'm sick, don't want to be around anyone.
Yes.
And she says, I think that you should know that Tom Brady retired because I'm watching Fox News, and Clay is on Fox News right now talking about Tom Brady's retirement. I just thought you should know. And I kind of said incoherently, oh, great, thanks. Appreciate it. That's when I went and saw the announcement. Clay, I was shocked when I heard the news that Tom Brady was retiring. What was your first reaction?
I was surprised. I woke up and saw the video and saw what everybody wanted to talk about on the television hit that I did this morning. And I mean, I may have said it on your show. Certainly I've said it on my shows and a variety of places. I thought Tom Brady getting divorced made it more likely that he would, that he would decide going forward to continue to play football. Because to me, the divorce, in my mind, is such a major life change, and it seemed to be connected to his decision to play football in the first place. Whether that's true or not, we don't know. We're not in the marriage. But I just thought it was unlikely that he'd come back for 1 year, get divorced, and then decide, hey, I'm done with everything. So I thought he'd continue to play. I didn't think he played poorly this year. Certainly the team did not have a good year, but they still won the division, and Brady still posted okay numbers. So it's not like he completely fell apart, or in the Peyton Manning context, clearly had nothing really left from a health perspective. I think Brady could have continued to play, and I thought he would.
And it changes the trajectory, it has to, of a couple of organizations that thought they could be in the mix, right? Namely the 49ers, the Raiders, the Buccaneers. I mean, there's a big list of them, but the top three, according to Vegas, and the odds of where he would land, those are the three teams that now have to go a different path.
Yeah, I thought he would go to the Dolphins. That was my best bet. They still have Tua under the rookie contract, but he's not costing a lot of money. And maybe partly this was about how Brady made his decision. I mean, we don't know what kind of behind the scenes conversations he might have had, what teams may have expressed interest in him as a free agent going forward. Maybe he wasn't enamored of his options. Maybe he truly did just decide during the course of the year, this thing has played itself out, and he was ready to go. His parents were on the field for that final game, the loss in the playoffs that they had against the Dallas Cowboys, and maybe that was the moment when Brady knew. But yeah, I can't say that I was not surprised by the choice.
I heard the discussion of the greatest GOAT, Jordan or Brady, in terms of how you define it, regardless of sport. I'll ask it this way, Clay: the Brady brand and where it's headed, can it reach Jordan brand status, which is insane to look at from the minute-by-minute calculations of what Nike has earned just over the last 5 years? I saw your tweet where they have made $10,000 every minute, which equals $19 billion off the Jordan brand over the last 5 years.
I don't think so, because I think not only did Jordan hit and I think that's, such a fascinating business story. And I think they're making a movie with Matt Damon and Ben Affleck about how Jordan ended up with Nike instead of Adidas, which I would be really intrigued to watch. Phil Knight wrote a book that I thought was really, really good called Shoe Dog, which is about, his memoir of founding Nike, and involves some of his relationship with Jordan and those aspects. It's just an incredible book. But when you look at that era, athletes had not really become brands yet. So there was less competition to create a brand, the Air Jordan brand. Now there's 20 different NBA players probably who have shoe deals, and I'm guessing it's 20. I don't know what the actual number is, but it's just harder to cut through the noise. And as good as Tom Brady was, and I do think that's a fun debate about the greatest team sport athlete, and to me, the greatest two team sport athletes of the last 40 years at least are Brady and Jordan. I just think there's too much noise for an athlete to cut through and create a brand. I mean, one of the stats that I had in my last book, Republicans Buy Sneakers Too, which is obviously a Jordan quote, but Jordan's shoes outsell every current NBA player's shoes combined, which is really kind of a radical thing. And I don't think many people know that data point. The Air Jordan brand, Michael Jordan shoes, outsells every single other current NBA player's shoes combined. So no, I don't think Brady can build an iconic brand on the same degree that Jordan can. But I don't think it's because of some failure of branding on his behalf. I think the marketplace is just far more competitive now than it was then.
Clay, I was just scrolling through websites earlier, and I know OutKick's got a story about this, but I was shocked to see a big breaking news tab in the entire website about Breonna Stewart leaving the Storm for the Liberty, and there's a new Big Three in New York. I knew this caught your eye also. On a day that Tom Brady retired, apparently with ESPN, the biggest story is a WNBA free agency signing.
Yeah, I don't know any WNBA players really. I know women's tennis players. I know women's soccer players. There are, and certainly I know, gymnasts and things like that. I just think there's been a desperate desire to make people care about the WNBA, and I just don't think it's worked. I don't know those women. I don't know how many WNBA teams there are. The story that I saw most recently that was getting a lot of play in the WNBA was, it's really unfair that the WNBA players have to fly commercial. And I couldn't help but laugh. Like, why is that unfair? I actually, and this is no joke, you were talking about how sick you felt. The sickest I've been, knock on wood here, I'm sitting at my desk. In the last decade, probably, I was out in LA and I thought I was going to die. I had a really bad stomach bug. And this has probably been, 7 or 8 years ago. Fortunately, I haven't been really sick much in the last, decade plus. And I had to fly from LA to Atlanta for the SEC championship game. And I don't remember what year it was, but Alabama was playing Missouri. That's the year that of the SEC championship game. And I legitimately thought I was going to die. I mean, I really did feel like I was going to die. I changed my flight already. This was like the last flight I could take from LA to Atlanta. It's a long flight. And I'm sitting at the gate waiting to get on, and the entire U.S. women's soccer team is also on my flight. In coach. We were all in coach together. And it was a monster plane, like one of those overseas jet style planes where it has like 3, double rows. I don't even know, it's 7, whatever bigger than a 747 is, but it has one side, then a lane, middle section, like 5, 6 seats, whatever it is, and then the other side. And I was in coach near the back of the plane in the dead middle of the middle section, right? So there were like 3 people on either side of me. And I sat down and I legitimately thought, I'm going to die on this airplane flight. And it's the worst airplane flight of my life. It's the only time I've been sick in the last decade. But if you've ever had to travel when you're sick, I would have paid like an inordinate amount in cash just to be at home in my own bed, covered up. I just remember sitting there thinking, like, what dollars would I pay right now to just be able to snap my fingers and be home underneath the covers in my bed? But my point on tying this all in is the U.S. women's soccer team was with me flying coach for some reason. I guess maybe they had an exhibition or something from L.A. to Atlanta. And it actually made me like them more because I was like, oh, these girls are not super divas. They're traveling like normal people would. So when you complain, I can't believe we have to fly on a regular airplane, it doesn't make me think, oh, you poor person. It makes me think, yeah, you're kind of a diva, especially when your league loses money and people don't really care about it, despite the fact that they've been beaten over the head with the league for the last 25 years about how amazing it is and how much they should care.
Well, when you have the network champion, everything you do, you might as well ask for everything. I mean, if they think that's bad, Clay, try traveling with the Nashville Cats at 5:30 in the morning with little Richard getting on the flight first.
Yeah, look, I mean, I when I was at most college teams don't travel. I mean, a lot of them, like college basketball teams, travel commercial, right? Because it's way easier to travel commercial with that size than it is, a full football team or something. But yeah, I just, you get to make a living as an athlete, and that living is effectively being subsidized by the NBA itself because your sport has never really turned a profit. I don't feel like you're being mistreated by the larger American sports ecosystem.
Did the Broncos get it right? And I'll ask it a different way. Is Sean Payton worth it in the coaching search process that the Broncos went through?
Yeah, what did he get? Like $85 million? I mean, to me, and I said this earlier, you're just doubling down on the fact that Russell Wilson's the right quarterback for the Broncos. And they may not have any other choice because they've already invested whatever it is, $200 million in the idea that Russell Wilson can be an elite quarterback. And if Russell Wilson can't be an elite quarterback for Sean Payton, I think the Broncos just have to throw their hands up and say, nobody can get him fixed. So I expected for Sean Payton to end up in Denver. This is one that I got right in terms of my prediction at the end of the season, unlike Brady, who I expected to play. To me, Denver made the most sense because remember the debate that was most common for Brady in his career. First was Brady versus Manning. Second was, hey, who's more responsible for the Patriot dynasty? Is it Tom Brady or Bill Belichick? And since Brady left the Patriots, he's won 2 division titles, a Super Bowl, and gone to the playoff 3 straight years. And the Patriots have fallen back into mediocrity. And that's because the quarterback matters more than the head coach, no matter how good the head coach is. So what Sean Payton is wagering, in addition to what the Broncos are wagering with the money that they are spending, is that he's going to be able to fix Russell Wilson. And if he is able to do that, then it's money well spent. And I think it's a tacit admission from Sean Payton that the quarterback position matters a great deal, and he thinks he can do with Russell Wilson some of the things that he did with Drew Brees.
Clay, I'm convinced that Stetson Bennett doesn't want to play in the NFL. At the very least, doesn't care whether or not he plays in the NFL. He hasn't signed with an agent. He turned down an opportunity to go to the Senior Bowl. Instead, he goes to Dallas, ends up getting arrested for public intoxication. I think Stetson Bennett is perfectly fine being 2-time national champion quarterback at Georgia, Stetson Bennett, and making a living off that the rest of his career. What do you think?
I don't. I think he probably thinks that he has a future in the NFL because I don't think you could be as competitive as he is. I mean, everybody said, hey, you could never play college football. And he was so competitive and so driven that he was willing to do whatever it took to become a college football quarterback. I think that Stetson Bennett, likely, as many kids who grow up in the South do, dreamed as much or more about playing college football than he did the NFL. So I think he's already achieved his wildest dreams. I doubt that he sat around a lot thinking about winning the Super Bowl. I bet that he thought a lot more about winning the SEC and winning a national championship with Georgia. And so when you achieve your wildest dreams, I think he's probably, first of all, having an incredible time celebrating, but also starting to come to grips with the fact that he's got to prove himself all over again in the NFL. As an undersized quarterback. And we'll see whether or not he's capable of doing that and whether he has a chance. But I think just the competitor in him wants to prove that he can do it in the NFL too. So no, I don't think that he's happy with his career being over. I think he wants to prove that he can do it in the NFL, just like he proved that he can do it in college. And I think that's what the next step in his evolution is about.
Bill O'Brien now with the New England Patriots, and then the story comes out that Washington offensive coordinator Ryan Grubb just turned down Alabama after meeting Nick Saban. I had to click on that, Clay, because 1 or 2 years under Saban means a great deal to any coach, no matter if you're rehabilitating, quote unquote, as we would call it, or if you're trying to be the up-and-coming next coordinator that everyone talks about, and especially if you're at Washington, right? To me, no matter the relationship, it'd be extremely hard to turn down the offer.
It's an interesting dynamic. I'm making this analogy for a while, but for people out there who are Harry Potter fans, the coordinator positions for Nick Saban are like, and I don't know what percentage of people will even get this, but the dark arts, defense against the dark arts teachers in Harry Potter, meaning every year it's like he redoes everything because and needs a new coach, just like they needed a new teacher in that Harry Potter world. Saban is Alabama football. And what Nick Saban has demonstrated time after time is he's going to find good coordinators and he's going to give them an opportunity to coach probably the most talented teams in all of college football. And he has a system in place and he knows how it runs. And if you come and he plugs you in, he will allow you to go to bigger and better things. I don't think there's hardly any offensive or defensive coordinator in Nick Saban's career almost who has ended up the next job that they take is worse than the one that they got. But the bargaining system that you undertake there is it's probably going to be hellish because Nick Saban is not necessarily a guy who is willing to suffer fools lightly. And so sometimes I think guys make the decision not to take that job because here's a piece of life advice I would give to people out there. If you're taking a job because you think I'm not going to have this job very long, but I'm going to go get another job, I think it's probably a poor career choice. Because it's hard to do a really good job at a job you don't love. And so, there's nothing wrong with wanting to advance. And certainly, look, if you're a coordinator in college football, it's no great secret that your goal is to be a head coach, right? You want to either return to being a head coach again, or you want to be a head coach. There's nothing wrong with that ambition. But my advice would be if you're going somewhere just to try to go somewhere else, probably going to be challenging there. And I wonder whether some coaches that turn down that job are doing it for that reason. I think you need to want the job that you're going to, not looking at it as a stepping stone, because, sometimes that can be a mess if you're thinking about the next job before you got the first job.
Clay, as we wrap up, I'm here to report that Withrow now has TSA PreCheck. I traveled with him last week, so next Tuesday when
I'm
we
out
all
of
depart,
steerage.
When we all depart together, we will be a seamless process.
I don't have TSA. I don't have TSA pre-check.
Whoa.
I have Southwest A boarding group, and usually the lines are super short. I have the whatever it is, first class for Southwest, perpetual A boarding. So I can walk right through. That's basically like having a first class ticket every time. And where we are in Nashville, for people who don't know, it's essentially a Southwest hub. So if you want a nonstop direct flight somewhere, chances are you're going to be on Southwest. But I'm looking forward on Tuesday to heading out to what will be a Fox Super Bowl and being out there for a week to see exactly how that goes.
It's going to be fun. We'll see you on the Southwest flight. You will be boarding the plane before I will, Clay, but I will be going through security quicker. So 6 and 1, half dozen the other.
Yeah. I at some point will maybe get the pre-check, but it's a combination of the A boarding group, and then I've also got all the kids, and they don't have pre-check. So I'm like, this is just not it hasn't been worth it to my time to be concerned about it.
Basically, Clay has hot girl privilege when it comes to Southwest Airlines.
Yeah, but excuse me, Mr. Travis. Please, all active or retired service members and Clay Travis, come on up on the flight right now on Southwest.
I honestly think that the pilot should come out and shake my hand every flight based on how many Southwest flights I've been on. Back in Up in the Air, I think if that was the movie where the Sam Elliott character comes out and shakes like George Clooney's hand,
yes,
because he's flown the airline so many times. I've got 2 million Southwest points right now, which I don't imagine very many people reach.
No. I was happy to get 100,000.
It's impressive, Clay.
Yeah, well done, Clay.
We'll see you on Tuesday.
Another plaque headed your way from Southwest.
All right, I'll see you guys Tuesday.
Man. Sounds good. Clay Travis with us each Wednesday. And, next week we'll be out in Glendale for Super Bowl 57.
I'm shocked that Clay's going to be back in steerage with Jack Dawson boarding the Titanic, and I'm going to be in TSA pre-check. I really thought he'd have that TSA pre-check by now.
I assumed he was like grandfathered in.
Well, here's what I've noted about TSA pre-check is that more and more people are doing it. So at times that can be as long as the normal security line. Not often.
No.
Not often because it moves so much faster.
It's never there. You don't have to remove anything.
Yeah, it goes so much
faster.
Throw
your bag down, walk through, go about your day.
Yep.
Hit us up with your thoughts, by the way, at OutKick 360. There is a male makeup influencer, Chad, dating a mystery NFL player, and it's all the rage on social media, to the point where Taylor Lewan has joined the fray. That's next on OutKick 360.
I witnessed, Dennis Price and C-Spray and all these people just do such amazing things, and we continue to get asked about Afghanistan and what we didn't do in Ukraine. Like, why would you, beyond Aziz, it's no brainer why I would go help Aziz. Why would we continue to help these people? And, I think the easy answer is the right thing to do. When the governments of the world completely failed, including our own, it was very discouraging. But what brought me hope was to see that when the governments of the world failed, good people stood up and did what the governments wouldn't do and couldn't probably do. And did the right thing. And that was really encouraging for me because I think all of us kind of struggle with hope in our country right now because of the political divide and things that we don't agree with. But it was really hopeful to see that when the governments don't do the right thing, people do. And one of the things myself and C-Spray were asking in this interview is, why would you do it? And of course we said, because it's the right thing to do. But C-Spray was asked a question that I think is important that we can all learn from. He was asked, was it worth it? Was it worth it? And he said, it doesn't have to be. It doesn't have to be worth it to do the right thing. And whether it's something like this or in your personal lives, I think we all have the ability to do the right thing in our own little spheres of our life. And we always try to balance the ROI. What are we going to get out of it? What's the return on investment? But it doesn't always have to be worth it to do the right thing. And in this case, I don't know if it was worth it or not. I thought it was worth it to Aziz and his family and the 17,000 Afghans, and I believe that burden God put in our heart. I think it was worth it to God for us to be obedient and go do that call. But I think the world can learn something from this. That there is hope that there's good people around who will stand up and do the right things. People that supported us were not people that I typically agree with. There's a lot of people that follow me on Instagram that hate me and bash me for my conservative views and stuff like that. But they were writing me like, hey, I don't like you, but what you're doing is awesome. And where can I support? Where can I give money? And it was so cool. And we had this Jewish organization that they wanted to pay for 2 planes, which was like $1.5 million, a big donation. And they called me back and they said, hey, we tried to make the donation, but we can't do it. And I was like, oh, why? Did I give you the wrong routing number or something? And they said, no, we're a Jewish organization, and Mighty Oaks Foundation, my foundation, is a Christian organization, and we can't give you that money. And I said, okay, but you do realize we're rescuing Muslims, right? And we kind of laughed and moved forward, and they made that donation. It was just an amazing moment in time where politics, religion, like nothing else mattered besides good people standing up and do the right thing for other people. And it'll always be like just super special to me to have been part of that.
Yeah, no, I mean, it's the whole thing. And like I said to the audience, go ahead and get the book, Saving Aziz. You can get it anywhere you want to get books. It's an incredible story, and I think it's something young people especially should learn about. And everyone, because it does go to show that there's good people. You know, everyone wants to be at each other's throats these days. That's kind of what the media teaches you to do. Hate each other. Everyone's a villain. If you disagree, you have to hate. Not true. Not true at all. So I think your story is you know, represents that you can, a lot of good out there. Now on the Ukraine, because I do want to talk about this, because the war is ongoing. What was your experience when it comes to the situation in Ukraine?
Well, it's changed. It's changed since I began. You know, it started in February. We had ceasefires on the ground before the invasion because we knew it was coming. We were watching it unfold. And then I went immediately after the invasion. I was in Ukraine, you know, days after the invasion. And originally we went there to see, you know, hey, how can we help? Afghanistan is a lot different. People couldn't go in Afghanistan and load up mass amounts of people to get them out. We were able to do that. Ukraine, people could drive a bus across the border, open the door, load it up, and get people out. So the mass evacs were not something we needed to do. And you know, one of the things about special operations is you do what's special, you do what other people can't.
OutKick 360 rolls on. Chad, you heard back from your family member who's going to be watching 80 for Brady?
I told you that my Aunt Mitzi was probably watching the show, and she said, yes, I'm watching. I'm excited. 80 for Brady will be fun. And then apparently I described the movie about it being an 80th birthday, which she's texting me, but I'm not, responding. She's texting what I'm saying on the show. She says, no, it is based on a group of ladies in their 80s who gathered every week to watch Brady play. Sunday Morning did a segment on them. There are only 2 of them left.
Oh.
So, but there's 4 women in the movie. So I'm confused on what she's saying on that, on the 2 of them left. Maybe they added 2 friends.
It's like the movie Ghost.
So 2 of them watched, and then it's Cocoon all over again. 2 of them watched, and then some of them died, and they added 2 other friends
Do
to
this to Tom for me.
Either way, she's got the full synopsis of the film, and she'll be seeing it Saturday at 12:30. So
Awesome.
I will. I told her I want a full review of 80 for Brady.
Yes.
And then we'll discuss it on
She
air.
should write a column for OutKick on this.
She says I think it's going to be a fun movie. I think
hope so.
My Aunt Mitzi, just written by Aunt Mitzi with her review of 80 for Brady at OutKick.com, I think that'd get a lot of clicks.
Clicks on Twitter, on social media, politics. Then there's like sports, and then in between is this Jeffree Star investigation into who he is dating in the NFL.
I have no idea who this is.
I didn't until I mean, my timeline is just inundated with everyone trying to guess who this is. So he is a male makeup influencer who has Twitter and social media abuzz based on his post about how they're headed to Wyoming with his NFL boyfriend. And people are trying to like investigate like the markings on the hand that's in this photo of they're holding hands on this private jet and trying to figure out who it is, to the point where NFL wives are like losing their minds over how dare you speculate about so-and-so.
My husband.
Yes. We have the story at OutKick right now. Ethan Postic's wife, offensive lineman for the Browns. She is like disputing everything. Like, how dare you name him? There, like the everyone's trying to pinpoint like clothes, markings on the hand.
It's
6'6".
He goes and says he's 6'6", not in the Super Bowl.
Yeah,
it's a white guy.
Yes,
very clearly.
So Lawan has also chimed in on this. And David, what did Lawan have to say?
So the funny thing about Taylor was when he tweeted it, he was like, "Am I in Wyoming?" And it just kind of got to a back and forth because it was funny. I don't think we have the tweet for this, but Dylan Radins, another Tennessee offensive lineman, posted a picture of Taylor's terrible parking job outside the facility. He's like, "No, I can't confirm you were in Nashville this morning." So this has just continued to go. I don't know if we go back to the picture real quick of
Which
the
one?
first tweet.
Yeah,
with the mirror where you just see the guy from behind.
Yeah.
There's like I can't tell if that's a 9 with a silencer on it in the photo as well. Like I really have no idea what's going on. But I mean, people are taking this from one step to another as far as names that are being thrown out there.
This is everyone's like trying to chime in on the so there's like a vein on the hand that they're trying to pinpoint with like Justin Herbert was mentioned, but it's like there's this little pinprick for an IV on the hand. And it could be like people are thinking like it was a mole or something.
Yeah.
You know, so again, Chad, this is the internet now.
So to add to this story,
this is where we are.
A couple of years ago,
thank you,
apparently Jeffree Star did the same thing, but it was with she said like a professional basketball player.
Mm-hmm.
I looked this up. I've never heard of this guy, like Andre Marhold.
No
who
idea.
played it like Duquesne. Shouts out to them. This thing, their second
Duke,
reference.
shout out to the Dukes.
Yeah, second reference in 2 weeks now.
Another
he
sponsorship
played
opportunity.
there, and he claimed that, no, I was just being paid to pretend to be the boyfriend.
And if you want to cause a stir, this is a perfect way to do it.
It's clearly fake, right?
I
That's
think
my
it
first
is.
thought is like it's a work in some way to get interest.
I mean, it's also believable. I mean, but I think if you're trying to get interest, that's the way to do it.
Yeah, but I mean, that one shot where it's just the back of the player, like someone knows who that is. If you're intimately involved with that person, you know that's them from behind. I feel like with the clothing, with everything. It's like, that's you.
Unless
like
they're not with anyone.
Hutton, this is not you, but if I'm like, if I know Jonathan Hutton
I'm not
intimately
6'6".
enough that if Hutton was in clothing that he owns and it was his back and this thing was circulating, I'm like, that's Jonathan Hutton. Right? So someone should be able to say, that's this person. I'm not even going to incriminate anyone.
Well, I mean, again, like the wives are coming to the defense of their husbands here.
Well, I don't know. Maybe pinpoint some of the wives that are coming to the defense, and they're the ones that are the most worried when they see that photo. That could narrow down
Super
the
Bowl
investigation.
57 inundated with 80 for Brady. Super Bowl 77, we will chronicle the film of the search for the hidden NFL player on private jets with Jeffree Star.
A Jeffree Star biopic is going to be a banger.
Back at it tomorrow. Oh, well done. Back at it tomorrow on OutKick 360.